Welcome back to Worlds Within. I'm Simon Esler. Today, we're finalizing our study of infiltration into our education system by foreign and elite agendas. We'll continue where we left off by exploring the many different levers of control being implemented from a social engineering perspective. Education is most certainly one of these levers of control, and today we'll explore it in relation to two others, politics and law. Now that we know about the importation of the Prussian schooling model, it's plain to see the specific aspects of the human population industrialized education was designed to control, namely free thought and the expression of free will. But how does education as a lever of population control interact with other similar control systems? Is it possible that education, politics, and law represent a trifecta of control? And how old is the authoritarian relationship between these three domains of life? How are they being used today? We'll begin by exploring politics and its history as a lever of control. Politics is an extremely essential means by which populations on Earth are controlled, especially from the perspective of modern-day communist warfare. Before we journey into the depths of history, philosophy, and metaphysics, let's listen to what General Robert Spalding has to say about the Chinese communist application of warfare in politics.
I know, of course, you're one of the top researchers on China. What do you know about Chinese political warfare operations?
Well, first of all, they describe everything in a document called Unrestricted Warfare, written by two People's Liberation Army colonels back in 1999. In fact, I'm working on an update of the book to really explain to the American people what's going on here. But the challenge that we face is that the Chinese Communist Party sees political warfare as its primary motivation or primary axis of war. It's not about weapons. It's about using influence and financial incentives to encourage the kind of behavior they want, whether that be a corporate leader, whether it be a financial leader, whether that be a political leader. So we're today in their element. And really what I'm talking about here is they instituted a campaign against the United States in the beginning of 2020. It's the coronavirus.
So how did things get to this point? How did we get to a place where this insidious influence was so easily installed into our social order? As we explored a few episodes ago, the original Prussian schooling model that gave rise to public schooling as it is today in North America was designed to develop a social hierarchy which not only produced the largest revolt-free working class possible, but also utilized divisions that would generate a policy class subservient to elites and royalty. The most basic way of perceiving this pyramid is a grouping of working class, a political class, and elite class. And this is most certainly the social structure upon which the early Prussian schooling models thrived. However, this particular hierarchy has even deeper roots in human history. Even though our modern concept of democracy implies an empowered citizen, we need only to look to the relationship between political figures and higher elites within monarchies and globalized corporations to see that a caste system is fundamental to the current social order. Canada is still owned by the Crown, leaving every single politician in Canada to serve under British royalty. And beneath this elite class, well, there's the rest of us, the base of their pyramid. This structure, the role of the politician or the political lever of control, has very deep roots, even from the lens of mainstream history. We can follow the development of human history from as far back as medieval times to see that the political order of power has long been used as an internal control mechanism for allegedly democratic societies. Ernst Hartwig Kantorowicz was a German-American historian of medieval political and intellectual history. In his analysis, a medieval political theology emerged through the Middle Ages, which, quote, provided the modern basis for the democratization of the hereditary succession of a wealthy elite, and for our own modern political hierarchical order, politicians, and their close association with the wealthy nobility. Kantorowicz explains, quote, medieval triumvirate appears, with the support of the legal machine, a private enterprise of wealth and succession, both supporting the fixed hierarchical order reserved exclusively for the nobility and their descendants, and the monarch and his or her heirs, Cooperation was needed by the three groups, the monarchy, the church, and the nobility, in an uneasy medieval alliance, and at times it appeared fractious. Meaning essentially that a tiered echelon of elites, politicians, and those above them have worked together to control everyone beneath them, with the help of the legal system, since medieval times. So why is it so important that we uncover how far back this social hierarchy goes? Didn't we already uncover enough of this dark social engineering last week? Well, yes, but it's important to understand how deeply we have been shifted in the wrong direction, and for how long, because it will become helpful in unentrenching us as a population. You see, when generations of trauma, in this case brutal oppression, go on and on, the normalization of this trauma is driven deeper and deeper into our collective psyche, which forms a base of trauma that can be worked with very efficiently by social engineers. The escalating sophistication of this same social engineering model consumed the will of the people. In fact, we can take two simple statements from MK Ultra whistleblower Cathy O'Brien to better unpack this in a very concise way. Firstly, she states that, quote, social engineering has its strongest impact whenever people are fearful. Now, given that her expertise is in deprogramming some of the most sophisticated trauma-based mind control on Earth, her statements carry a great deal of gravity. Secondly, she states that, quote, it only takes 3 generations of conditioning for a belief to become autogenically ingrained. Autogenically implies that the belief becomes automatic and therefore goes unquestioned. In other words, it becomes normalized. This is a super important idea because there are patterns of entrainment that have swayed us away from our shared spiritual center, and understanding these patterns is a major step towards collective freedom. If generation after generation, the majority of us have been told your worker, their politicians and celebrities, and their elites and royals, then this belief was installed way before the schooling system was even introduced. So the social engineers of the day had a lot to work with when schooling as a control system was installed. But let's consider too that the social hierarchy as an autogenically installed operating system is just one belief in a sea of many others. In fact, looking at this as a kind of operating system as we did last week is helpful because we can see the arc of software development over time. There was enough transgenerational fear and oppression to ensure that something as detrimental as the Prussian model of schooling would be installed without major issue and continue up until today. You see, by installing the base program that created elite classes, policy classes, and worker classes, it was then possible to increase the sophistication of these control systems over time transgenerationally. Cathy O'Brien's quote on every 3 generations creating an automatic unconscious belief system reveals a major structural component in the large-scale social engineering agendas that have driven the development of education and other levers of control in the North American experiment. This means that every 3 generations, an automated belief system settles and sinks into the collective unconscious and begins to run automatically in the background. It means it becomes invisible. Every 3 generations, over thousands of years of being controlled and manipulated, we sank deeper and deeper into a more narrow column of existence. Our minds were directed into increasingly constrictive and complex cognitive labyrinths, unknowingly upheld by us all. Every 3 generations, we accepted less sovereignty and more control. Even under the guise of social revolutions, that hidden hand has always had the autogenic belief systems previously installed to fall back upon. If politics has been an embodiment of an elite control system since medieval times, and the Prussian model that was brought here into North America was merely an upgrade of the operating system, what did that upgrade imply? It meant that students could now be molded to align with the agendas of political leaders who wield their agendas at the beck and call of the elites and royalty to which they are subservient, just as it has been since at least medieval times, but probably way further back into, galactic history. The point of all of this is that the engineering that normalized the power of the politician over the people, who was taking orders from an elite class above them, is what enabled the easy installation of the Prussian schooling model and the PhD system. Education was constructed as a complementary lever of control to the political levers that had been so very effective so far.